Let's talk about the bloodsuckers of the Mississippi Delta. Ryan Coogler's critically acclaimed 2025 film, Sinners, set in the heart of the oppressive and racially charged atmosphere of the Jim Crow era, located in Mississippi Delta in 1932. The story follows criminal twin brothers, Smoke and Stack Moore, both played by Michael B. Jordan, as they try to make their dreams come true by establishing a juke joint in their hometown. But their aspirations are violently interrupted by a profound supernatural evil, a unique breed of vampires. The film has received widespread critical success and has grossed over $300 million at the box office. The Hollywood Reporter praised Sinners for its masterful integration of period drama, rich musical tapestry, and compelling horror elements. While the film does incorporate several classic vampire tropes, what truly sets it apart is its innovative recontextualization of these creatures within a complex socio-political landscape. In doing so, Coogler transforms them into potent allegories that resonate far beyond the scares of the genre. Now let's get into the lore and the chilling manifestations of the Sinners vampires. How does Coogler's film manage to subvert our expectations and deliver a truly terrifying cinematic experience? Stay tuned to find out. The uniqueness, subverting and redefining vampire lore, the vampires in Sinners distinguish themselves from many of their cinematic predecessors, not only through novel lore elements, but also by embedding their very existence within a profound socio-political commentary, making them more than mere monsters. Departure from traditional lore, the existential curse. The film introduces several deviations from established vampire mythology, particularly concerning the nature of their transformation and vulnerabilities. The trapped soul concept, perhaps the most significant and unsettling deviation from established vampire mythology in Sinners, is the explicit concept that vampirism functions as a spiritual curse, trapping the victim's soul within their transformed body and preventing them from transitioning to an afterlife. This crucial piece of lore is conveyed through Annie, the hoodoo practitioner, whose deep understanding of supernatural forces positions her as a key interpreter of this unique damnation. While victims notably retain most of their personality and their memories, their core motivations become extremely simplified. Their will is effectively replaced with remix. This indicates a profound and terrifying loss of individual agency and spiritual autonomy. Rather than a mere physical or mental alteration, this stands in stark contrast to many traditional vampire narratives, where transformation often implies a complete loss of self, descent into pure bestiality, or the acquisition of a new, albeit dark, form of independent agency. The terrifying aspects beyond the bite, the horror evoked by the Sinners vampires, extends far beyond mere physical threat, delving into profound psychological and existential dread amplified by their strategic cunning and the film's rich socio-political context. Physical manifestations of horror, subtle yet potent. The immediate visual and visceral impact of the vampires contributes significantly to their terrifying presence. Appearance. Initially, the vampires and Sinners are remarkably difficult to distinguish from ordinary humans, largely retaining their original physical appearance. However, once their true nature is revealed or they fully embrace their transformation, they exhibit subtle but deeply unsettling physical changes. Their irises turn black, their teeth sharpen, and their fingernails extend into claws. Remick, as the ancient and more powerful master vampire, displays even more pronounced physical alterations, including distinctly glowing red eyes, a more formidable mouthful of sharp teeth, and significantly extended claws. He is also seen in a disfigured and smoking state when desperately fleeing the Choctaw hunters, hinting at the physical toll of his existence and encounters. Unlike overtly monstrous or immediately recognizable vampires, their ability to seamlessly blend into human society makes them an insidious, hidden threat that can infiltrate communities undetected. The subtlety of their physical changes makes the moment of their reveal all the more jarring and unsettling, as it often comes from someone familiar. This normalcy significantly amplifies the terror by making the threat feel immediate, pervasive, and deeply personal. The horror is not just in encountering an obvious monster, but in the chilling realization that anyone around you, even trusted loved ones, could have been subtly transformed into a predator without immediate detection. This weaponizes familiarity and makes trust a dangerous commodity, creating a constant undercurrent of paranoia. The uniqueness, subverting and redefining vampire lore, the vampires and sinners, distinguish themselves from many of their cinematic predecessors, not only through novel lore elements, but also by embedding their very existence within a profound socio-political commentary, making them more than mere monsters. Departure from traditional lore, the existential curse. The film introduces several deviations from established vampire mythology, particularly concerning the nature of their transformation and vulnerabilities. The trapped soul concept, where the vampiric demon ends up trapping the human soul, all the while taking full control of the human host's body. Perhaps the most significant and unsettling deviation from established vampire mythology in Sinners is the explicit concept that vampirism functions as a spiritual curse, trapping the victim's soul within their transformed body and preventing them from transitioning to an afterlife. This crucial piece of lore is conveyed through Annie, the hoodoo practitioner, whose deep understanding of supernatural forces positions her as a key interpreter of this unique damnation. While victims notably retain most of their personality and their memories, their core motivations become extremely simplified. Their will is effectively replaced with remix. This indicates a profound and terrifying loss of individual agency and spiritual autonomy. Rather than a mere physical or mental alteration, this stands in stark contrast to many traditional vampire narratives, where transformation often implies a complete loss of self, descent into pure bestiality, or the acquisition of a new, albeit dark, form of independent agency. The terrifying aspects beyond the bite, the horror evoked by the Sinners' vampires, extends far beyond mere physical threat, delving into profound psychological and existential dread amplified by their strategic cunning and the film's rich socio-political context. The chilling embrace, what makes them terrifying. The terrifying nature of the Sinners' vampires stems from a combination of psychological manipulation, physical threat, and the irreversible consequences of their influence. Psychological horror, the embodiment of paralysis and inherited rot. The vampires and sinners are terrifying because they symbolize the profound fear of inheriting and perpetuating negative legacies. This is exemplified by Smoke's apprehension of becoming like his cruel father, believing that his father passed that evil down to us. These children of the night are depicted as potent symbols of generational rot, inherited trauma, and the ease with which violence can become normalized. Their chilling nature arises from their representation of what happens when generational pain festers and calcifies into something immortal. To become a vampire in this narrative is to relinquish the possibility of growth, to embrace one's damage, and to pass it along unchanged. The film's vampires instill terror not solely as external threats, but as manifestations of an internal psychological horror, the dread of succumbing to one's own inherited flaws and traumas. If they embody emotional and spiritual paralysis, then the terror becomes deeply personal, the fear of transforming into a monster not just physically, but spiritually, by perpetuating cycles of pain. This shifts the horror from a simple jump scare to a profound apprehension of self-corruption and the inability to escape one's own destructive patterns. This makes the vampires uniquely terrifying as a reflection of humanity's internal battles, where the monster is not just an external entity, but a potential future self. Deceptive allure and treachery. A core terrifying quality of the Sinners' vampires is their deceptive nature. They are described as perpetual outsiders who desperately yearn to belong, but whose silky promises are rooted in treachery. They do not merely attack, they manipulate and entice their victims. Remic's offer of immortality and freedom from persecution serves as a prime example of this treachery. It is an alluring proposition that conceals a deeper, more insidious trap of stagnation and loss of self. The description of silky promises rooted in treachery highlights that the vampire's primary terrifying tactic is not brute force, but psychological manipulation and betrayal. They do not simply consume blood. They exploit fundamental human desires for belonging, safety, and freedom. This makes them more insidious and terrifying than a simple predatory creature, as they are capable of turning hopes and vulnerabilities against their victims. The horror is amplified by the realization that the promised salvation is a profound lie, leading to an even worse fate. This emphasizes a sophisticated form of horror that preys on human desperation and trust, making their allure as dangerous as their physical attacks. Physical and supernatural threat. The immediate physical threat posed by the vampires is underscored by their direct, predatory intent. They have come to the door literally looking for blood, and they'll get it. The film is characterized as gory and seductive and pitiless, suggesting a brutal and merciless approach to their victims. A key terrifying aspect is their invulnerability to common threats. Mary, after her transformation, is shot by smoke but remains unaffected and escapes. This indicates that conventional firearms are useless against them, leaving human characters profoundly vulnerable. The fact that vampires and sinners are unaffected by gunshots immediately subverts the audience's expectation of how such creatures are typically defeated in modern horror. This redefinition of a common trope enhances their terrifying efficacy. As the protagonist's usual means of defense are rendered useless, this compels a reliance on less conventional methods, such as hoodoo knowledge, thereby increasing the sense of helplessness and desperation for the human characters. This specific invulnerability contributes significantly to the immediate, visceral terror, as it suggests a threat that cannot be easily overcome by conventional means. While immune to bullets, they do possess classic vulnerabilities. Pickled garlic juice can repel them, and they are incinerated by the light of the sunrise. This combination of classic weaknesses with new forms of invulnerability ensures they are formidable but not invincible, creating sustained tension throughout the narrative. The irreversible transformation and loss of growth. A crucial and terrifying detail is Annie's revelation that killing Remick will not revert his thralls back to humans. This signifies that once transformed, there is no possibility of return, even if the progenitor vampire is destroyed. The film's ending, which shows an ageless Stack and Mary 60 years later, underscores the long-term existence of vampires. Their appearance is described as hollow, because they haven't grown, created, or healed, remaining frozen in time. The irreversibility of the transformation, even upon the sire's death, is a deeply terrifying aspect. It implies a permanent state of damnation, with no possibility of redemption or return. This is compounded by the hollow and stagnant nature of their eternal life. The horror is not merely in the act of being turned, but in the absolute finality of it. Where one is condemned to an existence devoid of growth, healing, or meaningful change, this makes the gift of immortality a true curse, a perpetual living death. This aspect reinforces the film's central metaphor of inescapable cycles and generational trauma, making the vampires terrifying not just for their actions, but for the existential void they represent. The intertwined horror, uniqueness as terror, the unique attributes of sinners' vampires directly amplify their terrifying nature, demonstrating the profound interconnectedness of these two aspects. The horror of the gift of immortality as a trap, the uniqueness of sinners' vampires lies in their profound metaphorical depth. Serving as potent symbols of inescapable cycles and generational trauma, this very uniqueness is precisely what makes them terrifying. The gift of immortality they offer is not a genuine escape, but a perpetuation of suffering, a trap that promises eternal life without having to change. The terror stems from the insidious nature of this offer, particularly within the context of the Jim Crow South, where freedom from persecution would be immensely appealing. The horror resides in the realization that the supposed solution to deeply ingrained societal and personal pain is, in fact, a deeper form of imprisonment and stagnation. This makes them terrifying not only for their monstrous acts, but for their ability to exploit human desperation and promise a false salvation. The unique, terrifying quality of sinners' vampires is their capacity to embody the ultimate betrayal of hope. They offer what appears to be an answer to profound suffering, generational trauma, and racial persecution, but deliver a fate that is arguably worse, an eternal, unchanging existence devoid of growth or healing. This represents a sophisticated form of horror because it preys on the deepest human desires for liberation and peace, transforming them into instruments of perpetual torment. The terror is amplified by the idea that the very thing that promises to set one free is the thing that truly binds one forever to their worst self or circumstances. This makes the vampires a potent symbol of the dangers of seeking easy answers to complex problems, and the profound tragedy of choosing stagnation over the difficult path of healing. The cultural and historical resonance of their predation, the vampires' unique placement within the historical context of the Jim Crow South, and their connection to themes of inherited trauma make their predation uniquely terrifying. They are not merely preying on individuals, but on the very fabric of a community struggling with profound historical injustices. Out! The unholy outdoor vampire dance, where black and white individuals unite in a forbidden desire, is particularly chilling. It suggests that the corrupting influence of vampirism can transcend deeply entrenched racial divides, but in a way that is terrifyingly unifying through shared damnation rather than genuine reconciliation. Their silky promises become even more sinister. When viewed as a means to exploit the vulnerabilities created by systemic oppression, the unholy outdoor vampire dance presents a powerful and uniquely terrifying image. In a racially divided society, the notion of black and white individuals uniting, even in a forbidden desire, is striking. However, the unholy nature of this unity, driven by vampiric influence, suggests that the horror extends beyond individual damnation to encompass the potential for a collective, corrupting solution to societal problems. This implies that the vampire's terror reaches into their ability to pervert even the concept of unity, transforming it into a shared descent into monstrousness, making their influence uniquely insidious and terrifying on a societal level. This adds a layer of sociopolitical horror, where the vampire's influence reveals the dark potential for shared corruption in the face of deep-seated societal divisions. Conclusion: a new breed of cinematic vampire, the vampires in Ryan Coogler's Sinners stand as a compelling redefinition of the cinematic vampire, far surpassing conventional bloodsuckers. Their uniqueness is rooted in their profound metaphorical depth, as they serve as potent symbols for generational trauma, inescapable cycles, and the pervasive fear of perpetuating negative legacies. This thematic richness is inextricably linked to their terrifying nature. The terror they inspire is amplified by their deceptive allure, their surprising invulnerability to common threats, and the irreversible, stagnant nature of their immortality. They represent not just a physical danger, but a profound psychological and existential threat. Preying on human desperation and offering a false liberation that leads to perpetual stagnation through Sinners, Ryan Coogler successfully crafts creatures that are not only viscerally frightening, but also deeply resonant, offering a chilling reflection on the human condition and the enduring struggles against inherited pain and societal injustice.